Imagine this. A mother clocks out after a long shift. Her hands still smell faintly of soap and steel as she walks the quiet aisles looking for dinner. Then she sees it a can she's trusted for years. Sardines, quick, rich, and comforting. A little oil, a bit of salt, a taste that fills the house before the plate even lands. But what if that simple can isn't what it used to be? What if the same tin that once brought nourishment now carries more sodium than a fast food meal, or traces of metals like cadmium that no one can see or taste? These aren't rare mishaps. They've shown up in real food tests, from FDA inspections to European safety reports. Tonight we'll open 5 cans and see what's really inside the labels we trust. Don't worry, we'll also show you 2 brands that still honor the sea and your health. Number 1. Beachcliff. Here's a number that feels easy to ignore: 500 milligrams. That's the sodium level in a single can of Beachcliff sardines in soybean oil, almost 1/4 of what an adult should have in a day. On its own, that figure doesn't sound menacing, but multiply it by habit: a can for lunch, another for dinner, and you'll see what regulators mean when they call salt a hidden burden. It's not poison, it's patience turned against your health. Salt isn't the only thing waiting inside. Most Beachcliff cans list soybean oil instead of olive, despite the front label's bright, healthy glow. Soybean oil oxidizes faster and loses the heart-friendly profile that sardines are supposed to offer. The can looks Mediterranean, but the ingredients are industrial. It's a small switch, but a powerful one. However, the real story begins before the label ever hits the shelf. The Food and Drug Administration classifies sardines as a best choice fish, meaning they're generally low in mercury. But the same rulebook also highlights how cadmium and lead levels vary by region. Sardines caught near industrial ports or estuaries can quietly exceed thresholds that Europe now limits more strictly than the United States. Not all seas are equal. European Union Regulation 2023-915 caps cadmium in sardine meat at 0.25 milligrams per kilogram. Source: European Commission, 2023. Meanwhile, the average shopper has no way to trace where their sardines were caught. The Beachcliff label doesn't name the FAO fishing zone, doesn't mention independent audits, and doesn't publish contaminant data. The can only says wild caught. Wild from where that question stays unanswered. That's how gaps grow. By contrast, newer brands are starting to list everything from catch zone to sustainability code. They're not perfect, but they're learning what older giants still ignore: transparency sells. A little detail on the back can restore faith faster than any marketing slogan on the front. In fact, Beachcliff's strength, its familiarity, has become its weakness. The brand feels safe precisely because it's been around forever. That's how we stop checking. Look closer and the illusion fades. The sodium climbs, the oil loses quality, the sourcing hides in broad daylight. You can't taste these changes. They don't alter the first bite, but they add up across months and meals. The problem isn't that one can will hurt you. It's that years of the same can might slowly and quietly. You can't taste metal until it's too late. There's a quiet irony in that. Sardines were once the symbol of honest food, humble, dependable, nourishing. Today, their reputation shelters practices that barely match that image. It's not deception, it's drift. The product hasn't lied, it's just evolved away from what it promised to be. Time disguises change. Meanwhile, regulations try to keep up. Limits are set, tests are run, and still not every batch gets checked. The system depends on averages, but your body doesn't live on averages. It lives on repetition, on what you eat every day. That's why even safe numbers can turn unsafe through time. Repetition is its own risk. By contrast, awareness is the simplest protection. Read the fine print. Choose in water or no salt added. Compare oil types. It's the kind of small vigilance that turns the act of buying food into an act of self-care. In fact, every can you open is a small vote for the kind of ocean you want to feed from. Because in the end, the danger inside a Beachcliff can isn't what you taste, it's what you assume. And assumption, more than anything, is how the poison stays silent. Number 2. Brunswick. It starts with something simple: hunger and habit. After a long day, most people reach for what feels familiar. Brunswick sardines have been part of that comfort for decades, stacked neatly on grocery shelves, promising strength in a small can. The blue and red labels signal something honest, almost nostalgic, like a shortcut to nourishment that never disappoints. And so we trust the motion: open, pour, eat, repeat. It feels harmless. But the body remembers more than the tongue does. Salt, oil, and habit leave their marks quietly. With every can, you are not just filling hunger. You are teaching your body a pattern. And that pattern over time starts to write its own story, one that does not end at taste. Habits are invisible teachers. However, this story takes a turn when you look closer at the numbers hidden behind that comforting design. Brunswick's tomato sauce sardines carry roughly 510 milligrams of sodium, and a single can far above what most people would expect from something so small. The salt preserves it, seasons it, sells, but too much of it changes what the meal means. Flavor becomes fatigue. Meanwhile, many of Brunswick's and oil variants use soya oil instead of olive oil, a small but telling choice. Soya oil oxidizes faster and loses much of the good fat profile that makes sardines valuable in the first place. It cheapens the protection that fish oils once gave. It still looks golden in the can, but that glow is mostly chemistry, not care. Looks deceive easily. Brunswick's official nutrition label lists around 510 milligrams of sodium per standard, can updated 2024. By contrast, the branding still leans on heritage phrases like traditional quality and classic taste. That framing works because psychology favors repetition. When something feels old, we assume it is safe. When it carries history, we imagine it carries honesty too. Yet salt and oil do not age with the same grace as memories. They stay the same chemicals. They have always been reacting to time, to heat, and to how often we open another lid. Memory does not purify molecules. There's nothing criminal about Brunswick's recipe. It is by all accounts within legal limits and perfectly edible. But psychology plays a clever role here. We connect comfort with safety and safety with health. One small can feel harmless. 2 cans a week feel routine. Then quietly, the sodium builds a wall around the heart and the oil loses its virtue. The can still smiles back. The human mind loves patterns more than truth. It prefers rhythm over reason. We crave the familiar because it feels earned, like a reward for our long days. Brunswick understands this, and that is why the label has barely changed in years. It does not need to. The trust was earned generations ago and has been spending itself ever since. Old trust, new taste. However, knowing this pattern gives us a choice. Awareness breaks repetition. When you turn the can around, read the sodium line, and see that number spelled out 500 milligrams, something shifts. You cannot unsee it. You might still buy it, but you will never eat it the same way again. Knowledge changes appetite. The cure for hunger turned into the cause of thirst. In the end, the only way to change the pattern is to pause before you open. Choose the water-packed version. Seek the no-salt label. Try fresh fish once a week. Each small act reclaims the decision from habit and gives it back to health. Because what the mind accepts by memory, the body must live by consequence. Number 3, Bumble Bee. Walk through any grocery aisle and you will see at the golden label, the shining font, the clean word that says olive oil. Bumble Bee's sardine cans gleam like a promise. The design feels deliberate, bright enough to look premium, simple enough to feel honest. It whispers wellness before you even read a line. The glow works fast. Every detail on the front is built to reassure. The script, the color, the light reflection, all tuned to echo the idea of something Mediterranean and pure. Yet a can's true character lives on the back. Turn it around and you find a quieter truth. The ingredients list soybean oil, not olive oil. The contrast is small but striking. Design speaks one language. The label speaks another. Moreover, this contrast is not accidental. The packaging follows a logic older than most marketing degrees. We eat with our eyes first. Bumble Bee knows that. By framing its sardines as in oil, it benefits from a cultural shorthand that equates any oil with health. Consumers rarely ask which one. We assume oil means olive. We assume color means quality. And so we keep buying the promise without tasting the difference. Assumption sells more than flavor. Bumble Bee's official ingredients list includes Spratz soybean oil salt and natural smoke flavor, confirmed in 2024. However, from a nutritional view, the oil matters more than the marketing. Soybean oil breaks down faster, oxidizes under heat, and adds omega-6 fats that can offset the benefits of omega-3 from the fish itself. The label never lies outright, but it lets the eye fill in the blanks. It allows your brain to see olive where only oil exists. That is the quiet genius of design. By contrast, brands that truly use olive oil say so boldly extra virgin cold pressed from Spain because those words cost more to earn. Bumble Bee avoids that precision using neutral phrasing that still suggests quality but carries no accountability. It is a masterclass in what designers call strategic omission. It tells you enough to feel safe, not enough to be certain. The can itself is a symbol of this duality. It looks like care, but it hides compromise. Every sheen, every highlight, every piece of typography works to build a story of purity that the ingredients quietly disprove. This is not a lie, it is theater. And the audience never knows where the stage ends. We buy what feels right, not what is right. Moreover, the irony deepens when we recall what sardines once meant a humble food, simple and clean, packed with real olive oil and salt, no pretenses. Now the same name carries the shine of lifestyle, branding the illusion of refinement, the distance between real and refined. What was once necessity has become aesthetic, history repackaged as health. In reality, the fix is simple: turn the can, read the small print, and look for the specifics. If it says soybean oil, that is exactly what you are buying. If it names olive oil, that is a better choice. The difference may be one word, but over time it separates authenticity from artifice. Small print saves clarity. Even purity now wears a mask. Irony lives in every aisle, that the same glow that catches your eye also blinds it. The can that looks most honest often hides the most ordinary oil. And in a world where design sells faster than truth, the hardest lesson might be this: the healthier product is not always the prettier one. Number 4. Goya. It began decades ago when a can was more than packaging. It was protection, a promise that food could last through storms, through hunger, through time itself. In those early years, tin was celebrated as progress, a metal shield that brought safety to the shelf. People believed in the sound of that click. It meant survival. Then in the middle of the 20th century, science found the fine print. Tin plate cans needed linings to prevent rust and spoilage. Those linings, once made with simple resins, began to evolve with the age of plastic. Bisphenol A, or BPA, entered the scene, an industrial chemical that made cans stronger and storage longer. It worked perfectly until it didn't. Progress had a cost. However, not every brand moved at the same pace toward safety. Goya, a name that carries cultural weight and long-standing familiarity, still produces sardines in tomato sauce and soybean oil without any clear BPA-free claim. Its cans look bold and dependable, the kind you might associate with heritage cooking. Yet the silence around the lining speaks louder than the colors outside. Absence says plenty. Meanwhile, consumer awareness has changed faster than the factories. In the last decade, the Food and Drug Administration and the European Food Safety Authority have both reviewed BPA exposure limits multiple times, lowering what they consider safe. But regulation lags behind innovation. Companies that wait for mandates instead of leading the change often do so quietly, without malice but without urgency either. Change moves slower in steel. The European Food Safety Authority set a new tolerable daily intake for BPA at 0.2 nanograms per kilogram of body weight in 2023, EFSA 2023. By contrast, newer sardine producers now print BPA-9, meaning no intentional use, directly on their labels, a small but crucial sign of responsibility. Goya does not. Nor does it display independent certification like MSC for sustainability or clarity on the catch area. It sells through reputation, not through transparency, and that reputation, for all its strength, now carries the burden of yesterday's standard. Legacy can be both a gift and a trap. Inside the can, the recipe remains simple: sardines, tomato sauce, salt, soybean oil. Nothing unusual, nothing illegal. Yet when you open it, you are tasting a formula built for another era, one that valued preservation above purity, volume above detail. The ingredients meet every rule, but rules change slower than understanding. Compliance is not always safety. However, the deeper issue is not the oil or the sauce. It is the unseen barrier between metal and food, the lining meant to protect you, but that may also quietly break down. Heat time and acidity accelerate migration. The longer the shelf life, the greater the contact. The more acidic the sauce, the stronger the reaction. Sometimes the container becomes the contaminant. Meanwhile, Goya's global footprint remains immense. Its scale feeds millions, its reach spans continents, and its trust has been built through decades of familiarity. But scale can also dull sensitivity. When a brand grows too large to hear each concern, it becomes slower to adapt, not because it ignores, but because it endures. Big brands move heavily. By contrast, modern consumers are moving differently. They read, they compare, they ask. A single missing phrase, BPA&E, can now decide whether a product feels safe or outdated. The market speaks in silence, and silence has started costing more than ink. Labels evolve faster than metal. Ultimately, the truth is not that Goya is unsafe. It is that safety has changed definition. What once symbolized progress now demands proof. And in the quiet war between chemistry and convenience, the can itself has joined the fight. The metal that once protected now asks to be protected from. Number 5. Chicken of the sea. We grew up believing a story that the ocean was endless. that no matter how much we took, it would give more. Chicken of the Sea built its legacy on that very image: abundance, affordability, and trust in something bigger than ourselves. The mermaid on the label seemed to promise both nourishment and care. It felt eternal. But eternity is a myth. For over a century, this brand has fed millions. It is one of the oldest names in canned seafood, a fixture in pantries from coast to coast. The slogan spoke of heritage and the taste spoke of comfort. But behind that calm image lies an industrial truth, one shaped by global supply chains, volume quotas, and oceans that no longer sound the same. The waves have grown quieter. However, the nutrition profile of Chicken of the Sea sardines tells a story of compromise. Each can carries around 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium, and many variants use soybean oil instead of olive oil. These are not violations, but trade-offs, the kind that come from balancing price with perception. What was once a fisherman's catch is now a commodity designed for consistency. The sea has been standardized. Meanwhile, transparency remains patchy. The label lists wild caught but gives no FAO fishing zone, no detailed catch location, no sustainability code. It is legal yet incomplete. To most consumers, wild feels romantic, almost heroic, the opposite of factory-made food. But wild without origin is like a story without a setting. It tells less than it hides. Clarity has a cost. Chicken of the Sea reports sodium content between 420 and 490 milligrams per serving in official nutrition data, verified in 2024. By contrast, smaller brands like King Oscar and Wild Planet now emphasize traceability. They print zones, certifications, and exact methods of harvest. It is not marketing, it is accountability. Chicken of the Sea still carries a logo of grace, but the grace feels outdated. The industry around it has changed, but its language has not. Nostalgia can become inertia. The irony is that this brand was once a symbol of progress. It democratized access to seafood, made protein affordable, and turned fishing into a global enterprise. Yet success at scale often becomes its own burden. The larger a system grows, the further it drifts from the rhythm of nature it depends on. Scale dulls sensitivity. However, modern science has begun to connect the dots between overfishing and ecosystem fatigue. Stocks that were once abundant are now under recovery programs. The same species that built these cans now migrate farther, breed slower, and respond differently to climate change. Each tin we open carries the story of a sea stretched thin. The ocean has limits. Meanwhile, Chicken of the Sea has made strides, joining global seafood initiatives, pledging sustainability goals and improving worker standards. But pledges without transparency remain promises on paper. The ocean does not read statements. It reacts to what we take. Nature listens only to action. By contrast, consumers today hold quiet power. Every choice to read a label, to pick a cleaner oil, to support traceable catch, sends a message louder than slogans. The ocean may not speak, but markets do. And as awareness spreads, even giants must learn to adapt or sink beneath their own reputation. Adaptation is survival. In the end, Chicken of the Sea stands as both a triumph and a warning. It reminds us of how far we have come and how close we are to losing the source of it all. The silence of the ocean is not peace, it's exhaustion. And in that silence, our choices still echo. But not every story from the sea ends in fatigue. Beyond the brands that overreach, there are still those that hold the line, companies that remember the craft, honor the fish, and protect the water that feeds them. They prove that sustainability is not a slogan, but a discipline. And for every can that cuts corners, there is still one that keeps its promise quietly, steadfastly, and for the right reasons. Number 6. King Oscar. Ask any food scientist or dietitian which sardine brand they trust on their own table, and one name still rises quietly above the rest: King Oscar. They will tell you it is not nostalgia, not advertising, but structure. Every decision from sourcing to sealing follows a principle that is as old as the brand itself: dignity in every detail. That is rare today. Professionals who study food chemistry often point to the oil first. King Oscar uses extra virgin olive oil for its premium bristling sardines, a variety native to the cold, clean waters of the North Sea. The oil is not filler. It is protection-preserving texture while reinforcing the omega-3 profile that makes sardines valuable in the first place. It is the right fat for the right fish, and that makes all the difference. However, what sets this brand apart is not the recipe but the transparency. The can lists its origin clearly Norway. The company outlines its catch zones, certifies its sources through the Marine Stewardship Council, and states that its cans are made without intentional use of BPA. Each claim is verifiable, not decorative. In an era when wild-caught can mean nearly anything, King Oscar treats precision as part of its character. Details become their defense. King Oscar sardines are MSC certified, packed in BPA-NI cans and sourced from North Atlantic fisheries under EU Code 27, verified in 2024. Meanwhile, experts also note how its processing differs from mass-market peers. The fish are hand-packed, not machine-filled, reducing bruising and improving consistency. The saucer oil covers every piece evenly, ensuring minimal oxidation and maximum freshness. It is craftsmanship at scale, industrial yet still human. That consistency builds confidence. By contrast, many cheaper sardine brands rely on automation that sacrifices quality for quantity. The result is often broken fillets, irregular oil coverage, or excess sodium to compensate for lost texture. King Oscar does the opposite: lower sodium, better oil, fewer additives, and visible care. The brand's longevity is not luck. It is discipline repeated over a century. Longevity must be earned, not inherited. This discipline is also why nutritionists recommend it as one of the safest options for long-term consumption. Its sodium range, typically below 400 milligrams per serving, remains among the lowest in its category. The use of olive oil provides monounsaturated fats, which balance the omega ratio better than the cheaper soybean alternative. When dietitians call it a model sardine, they mean it literally. It represents what a responsible can should be. Quality becomes the standard others measure against. However, King Oscar is not perfect. It is pricier, less available in discount markets, and more selective with suppliers. But those constraints protect its reputation. Scarcity in this case is not exclusion, it is preservation. The company chooses control over convenience, accuracy over mass production. It is a conscious trade-off in a noisy marketplace. Sustainability demands restraint. Meanwhile, loyal consumers describe something few metrics can measure: trust born from consistency. The taste has not drifted. The label has not been exaggerated. When opened, the can delivers exactly what it promises: clean flavor, firm texture, and an absence of aftertaste. Integrity tastes clean. By contrast, the lesson King Oscar teaches is not about nostalgia, but responsibility. Quality does not survive by accident. It survives by repetition. Number 7, Wild Planet. No slogan, no mascot, no noise. Wild Planet does not need them. Its presence in the sardine aisle feels different, restrained, almost humble. The label is simple, the colors are calm, and the message fits in a single line: sustainably caught, responsibly packed. Nothing more. It earns attention by staying quiet. Every can begins with a choice what not to include. No fillers, no artificial flavoring, no unnecessary oil blends. The sardines are packed in their own natural juices or pure extra virgin olive oil, both chosen for balance, not cost. Each tin reads like a recipe for restraint. Every ingredient has a reason. The fish themselves are smaller species harvested lower on the food chain. That decision matters more than it sounds. Smaller fish accumulate less mercury and grow back faster, meaning less pressure on ecosystems and safer nutrition for people. The brand turns biology into policy. However, Wild Planet does not ask for trust, it provides proof. Each can lists the catch area, the fishing method, and whether it uses purse seine or pole-and-line gear. Every product in its portfolio is sourced through a fully traceable network, verified by independent auditors and watchdogs that track sustainability claims. The company's transparency is not decoration, it is infrastructure. Its clarity builds confidence. Wild Planet sardines are certified sustainable by Friend of the Sea, with traceable catch zones listed on packaging as of 2024. Meanwhile, the nutrition numbers speak quietly but firmly: high protein, natural calcium, omega-3 levels that match the best in the category without excess sodium or added sugar. It is not a superfood because the label says so, it is because the process allows it to stay one. That matters more than marketing. Nature does the work. By contrast, other healthy sardine brands often cut corners under the same promise. They add unnecessary oil to adjust texture or preservatives to extend shelf life beyond need. Wild Planet refuses that game. Its cans look plain, but what they lack in flash, they make up in integrity. Each batch reflects the same principle that food should nourish, not disguise. Simplicity is the highest form of respect. The company's founder once said that the goal was never to be the biggest, but to be the cleanest. That philosophy seeps into its entire operation: selective sourcing, low-impact fishing, recyclable packaging, and transparent labeling. It costs more to do less, yet that paradox defines why Wild Planet works. Less when done right becomes more. However, restraint is not just ethical, it is strategic. In an industry where bold colors and bold claims dominate, Wild Planet stays in the shadows, letting informed consumers find it rather than shouting for attention. It trades volume for value, margin for meaning. It grows quietly. Meanwhile, dietitians and chefs alike recommend it not for novelty, but for reliability. They know the flavor, the texture, the consistency. It does not try to impress, it simply performs. Every can feels like a small contract, a mutual promise between producer and eater. Consistency earns loyalty. By contrast, the broader market still equates success with visibility. But Wild Planet proves that trust can be built without spectacle, that ethics can coexist with profit, and that flavor can thrive without manipulation. Its success rewrites the rules of what modern food can be. The revolution does not always roar. Ultimately, the question is not whether Wild Planet can dominate shelves. It is whether the world will learn from it. If simplicity feeds both body and planet, why do we still chase complexity? In the end, this story is not about fear, it is about choice. Picture a family gathered around a small kitchen table. The father opens a can, the mother slices bread, the children wait smiling as the aroma of real food fills the room. There is no guilt, no guessing, no hidden trade-off between health and convenience. Only simple ingredients: clean oil and fish that came from waters still alive. That small scene is what all of this has been: for the right to eat without worry, to trust what feeds us, and to pass that quiet confidence on to the next generation. When we choose wisely, we do more than protect ourselves. We help the oceans breathe again. Because when food is honest, life feels lighter and the table feels whole once more.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.